James and Olivia Carter appeared to have the perfect marriage. They had been together for 8 years, building a life that many admired. James was a successful architect, dedicated to his career, but always making time for his wife. Olivia, a freelance writer, worked from home, allowing her the flexibility to manage their household while pursuing her passion for storytelling. Their love story was one that seemed unbreakable, a tale of devotion, laughter, and companionship. To their friends and family, James and Olivia represented stability. They hosted dinner parties, took vacations, and celebrated every milestone together. Olivia often posted pictures of their life on social media, capturing moments of joy and romance. Their marriage seemed untouched by the struggles that often tore couples apart. Whenever James looked at his wife, he saw the woman he had fallen in love with, the person he had vowed to spend his life with. A key figure in their social circle was Daniel, James's best friend since college. The two had been inseparable for years, supporting each other through every phase of life. Daniel had been James's best man at their wedding, sharing in the joy of his friend's new chapter. Even after marriage, James maintained his close bond with Daniel, often inviting him over for dinner or weekend gatherings. Olivia and Daniel got along well, and James never suspected anything unusual about their friendship. Life continued as normal, with James believing he had everything he could ever want. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, cracks he had been too blind to notice. Olivia had become distant in recent months, though James dismissed it as work-related stress. He recalled times when she seemed preoccupied, spending long hours on her phone or stepping outside to take calls. When he asked, she would smile and tell him it was just a work assignment or a call with a friend. James trusted her completely, never doubting her words. As Valentine's Day approached, James wanted to do something special for Olivia. He planned a romantic dinner at an upscale restaurant and bought her a beautiful diamond necklace. He imagined the joy on her face when he surprised her with the gift, excited to see her happy. He had always cherished these moments, making sure to remind Olivia how much he loved her. But while arranging the details of their evening, something unexpected happened, something that would change everything. One evening, while Olivia was in the shower, James noticed her phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was unusual for her to receive messages so late. His curiosity got the best of him, and he glanced at the screen. What he saw made his heart pound. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." The sender was Daniel. James felt the air leave his lungs as he stared at the screen, his hands trembling. His mind refused to believe what he was seeing. A mistake, he thought. There had to be an explanation. But when he unlocked the phone and scrolled through the messages, the horrifying truth unfolded before him. James's hands trembled as he scrolled through the messages between Olivia and Daniel. The words on the screen cut deeper than any knife could. The casual flirtation, the shared secrets, the moments they had stolen behind his back. It was all there, laid out in front of him. His heart pounded in his chest as he read message after message, each one confirming the betrayal. This wasn't a recent affair. It had been going on for over a year. Memories started flooding back, moments he had ignored, dismissed, or explained away. Olivia's sudden mood changes, the times she seemed emotionally distant, the evenings she claimed to be meeting a friend but came home later than expected, the way she sometimes smiled at her phone before quickly putting it away, the way Daniel had started acting differently around him, not enough to raise suspicion at the time, but enough that James now saw everything with painful clarity. James's stomach twisted as he read about the times Olivia and Daniel had been together. They had laughed at his cluelessness, sent each other pictures from places James had thought she had gone alone, and even discussed the possibility of being together if things ever changed. Daniel, his best friend, the man he had trusted more than anyone, had been sleeping with his wife. And Olivia, the woman he had given his heart to, had been deceiving him every single day. His breathing became shallow. His pulse pounded in his ears. He wanted to throw the phone across the room, but instead he kept reading, torturing himself with every detail. He saw hotel reservations under her name, receipts for expensive gifts, and even a private email account she had been using to communicate with Daniel. He had been a fool. Everything they had built, everything he had believed in, had been a lie. James closed his eyes and tried to calm himself, but the rage inside him burned hotter with every passing second. He wanted answers. He wanted to wake Olivia up right then and there and demand the truth. He wanted to call Daniel and hear him admit his betrayal. But something inside him stopped him. Confronting them now wouldn't change what had already happened. He needed to think. He needed to plan. Instead of acting on impulse, James began gathering evidence. He took screenshots of the messages and forwarded them to himself. He checked Olivia's hidden email account, taking note of every exchange between her and Daniel. He went through bank statements, finding transactions linked to their secret meetings, hotel stays, fancy dinners, expensive wine. The more he uncovered, the more his hatred grew. By the time Olivia stepped out of the shower, James had already put her phone back in place. He watched as she climbed into bed beside him, completely unaware that her world was about to change forever. She kissed him goodnight, whispered, "I love you," and drifted off to sleep. James lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind filled with dark thoughts. Valentine's Day was only days away, and now it was no longer about love. It was about revenge. James spent the next few days consumed by a storm of emotions. Betrayal, heartbreak, and an overwhelming rage that refused to subside. Every time Olivia spoke to him, every time she smiled as if nothing had happened, his hatred deepened. He couldn't understand how she could look him in the eyes and lie so easily. The woman he had loved for years, the woman he had trusted with, his life, had been leading a double life right under his nose. And Daniel, the man he had always considered a brother, had been nothing more than a snake, waiting for the right moment to strike. But James didn't let his anger show. He remained calm, acting as if everything was normal. He continued his daily routine, went to work, and even kissed Olivia goodbye every morning. But at night, when she was asleep, he planned. His mind worked methodically, analyzing every detail, every possibility. He knew he had to be careful. If he let his emotions take over, he would make mistakes. He needed a plan that would ensure he didn't get caught. Valentine's Day arrived. Olivia woke up to a bouquet of red roses on her nightstand, along with a handwritten note from James expressing his love for her. She smiled, believing it was just another perfect day with her devoted husband. She had no idea what was coming. James had made dinner reservations at an upscale restaurant, pretending as though he wanted to celebrate their love. Olivia seemed genuinely excited, completely unaware that this would be the last Valentine's Day of her life. Throughout dinner, James played his role flawlessly. He laughed at her stories, complimented her dress, and even gave her a beautifully wrapped gift, a diamond necklace. Olivia's eyes lit up with happiness as she put it on, completely oblivious to the sinister intentions hidden behind James's affectionate gaze. If anyone had been watching them, they would have seen nothing but a loving couple enjoying a romantic evening. But beneath the surface, James was counting down the minutes until he would finally have his revenge. After dinner, he suggested they continue the celebration at home with a special bottle of wine. Olivia eagerly agreed, still thinking she was spending the evening with the same caring husband she had always known. But James had already prepared everything. Before they left the house earlier, he had crushed a powerful sedative into her drink, ensuring that she wouldn't be able to fight back when the time came. As they arrived home, James poured Olivia a glass of wine, watching as she took slow sips. He waited patiently, his hands steady, his expression unreadable. Within minutes, Olivia's body began to weaken. She blinked in confusion, her movements sluggish, her words slurring. Panic flickered in her eyes as she tried to speak, but her body refused to cooperate. That was when James finally allowed himself to smile. She had lied to him. She had humiliated him. And now she would pay the price. Olivia's body weakened with every passing second. Her vision blurred. Her limbs felt heavy, and an overwhelming dizziness took over. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor. A faint murmur escaped her lips as she attempted to speak, but her voice was barely audible. Panic set in as she realized something was terribly wrong. She looked up at James, confusion and fear evident in her fading eyes. James watched her struggle, his face void of emotion. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts. He had spent days preparing for this moment, and now it was unfolding exactly as he had planned. He reached for the knife he had placed on the kitchen counter earlier, gripping it firmly in his hand. The betrayal, the humiliation, the lies, everything fueled his rage as he took slow, deliberate steps toward her. Olivia's breathing grew shallow. She tried to crawl away, her fingers barely scraping against the cold floor. But her body refused to move the way she wanted it to. The drug had done its job. She was helpless. James knelt beside her, staring into the eyes of the woman he had once loved, the woman who had destroyed him. Without a word, he raised the knife and plunged it into her chest. The first stab was quick, precise. Olivia gasped, a sharp cry escaping her lips, but she was too weak to resist. Blood spread across her dress, staining the fabric a deep red. James didn't stop. He stabbed again and again. Each strike was fueled by the images that had haunted his mind for days. The messages, the secret meetings, the laughter she had shared with Daniel. He had been a fool to believe in her. Now she would never betray him again. When it was over, James sat back, his breathing heavy, his hands trembling. Olivia lay motionless, her once vibrant eyes now staring blankly at the ceiling. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of cars passing outside. The weight of what he had done settled in, but he felt no regret, only satisfaction. He knew he couldn't leave things as they were. He had to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Moving quickly, he grabbed a few valuables, Olivia's jewelry, some cash, and placed them in a small bag. He knocked over a lamp, scattered some papers, and left the back door slightly open to create the illusion of forced entry. He wiped the knife clean and placed it in Olivia's hand, ensuring her fingerprints were on it. Taking a deep breath, James picked up his phone and dialed 911. The panic in his voice was convincing. He told the dispatcher he had just come home to find his wife murdered, that someone had broken in and attacked her. His performance was flawless. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. As he sat on the couch, waiting for the police to arrive, he composed himself. He was ready. This was the final step in his plan. The flashing red and blue lights illuminated the front of the house as the police cars pulled into the driveway. James sat on the couch, his hands shaking, his face buried in them, as if he were in shock. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind over and over, preparing himself for every question, every possibility. He needed to appear broken, devastated, just another grieving husband who had returned home to a nightmare.